You want to be your own boss. You want financial freedom. Who doesn't? You want to build something significant, but you're stuck on a big decision. Should you buy a franchise or should you start your own business from scratch? We're going to break this down because both paths can work, but they're fundamentally different, and you have to really understand the difference, and most people don't understand the trade-offs until it's too late, and you don't want to be that way. So today, I'm giving you the honest comparison. There's no hype, there's no bias, just the legal and financial truth about both paths. So do you want to start your own business or do you want to buy a franchise? I'm Karam, the 20-year battle-tested attorney and entrepreneur. Now, I've seen both ends of the spectrum. I've helped entrepreneurs in litigation and in business transactions, and I've helped franchisees in disputes against franchisors. So I've seen business transactions in court, and I've seen them in the boardroom. And I've worked with entrepreneurs who scaled brands from basically nothing. So I've seen the distinction between the two, and I understand the difference, and I see where most of them have failed. So neither path is better, a franchisor or being your own independent entrepreneur. They're just different. So today I'm going to break down the 5 key differences between buying a franchise and starting your own business so that you can make the right decision for your situation. And everybody's situation is different. Everybody wants different things. But by the end of this video, you're going to know which path fits your goals, your risk tolerance, and your personality. Let's jump right in. Comparison number 1 is brand recognition versus building from scratch, right? This is important. When it comes to a franchise, when you're buying a franchise, you're buying an established brand. That's the whole point of buying a franchise, right? People already know the name. They already trust the product or service. There's already an existing track record. You're not starting from zero. You're stepping into a system that's already proven in the market. That makes the business that much more likely to succeed. If you open a McDonald's, people already know what to expect. You don't have to convince them to try your food, right? They already know your burgers are pretty good. So what are the pros when it comes to that? It's instant brand recognition, built-in customer trust, proven marketing strategies, but there's also some cons. You're tied to the brand's reputation, good or bad, and basically forever. So if the brand gets negative press, your location suffers as well. And you have no control over brand decisions. If they change, you change with them. When you start your own business, you build that brand from scratch, and it's not easy to do. Nobody knows who you are, right? You have to create awareness. You have to build trust, and you have to earn customers one at a time, and that's not easy to do, and you have to do it consistently. You own the brand 100%. You control the messaging, the identity, and reputation, and you can pivot. You can rebrand or change direction anytime. You have total control, but there's some cons to that. It takes time to build recognition. Very risky. You're starting from zero credibility. Marketing is harder and more expensive than ever. So the bottom line is this: if you want instant credibility, franchising gives you that. But if you want full ownership and full control, starting your own business gives you that. That's really the 2 biggest differentiators right there. So ask yourself, do I value speed to market or do I value creative control? Which one of those takes priority? Now, comparison number 2 is the built-in support versus building your own systems. When it comes to a franchise, when you're buying a franchise, you get training programs, right? You get their system, you get operations manuals, you get marketing templates. That's what it's all about. You get supply chain relationships. You get field consultants. In theory, everything is documented. The systems are already built. There's no guessing. The pros is you don't have to figure it out alone. There's no guessing. Someone already solved the operational problems. No need to reinvent the wheel. There's a playbook, and that's how you run the business, and it works. But there's some cons with that, like everything, right? The support might be minimal once you're open. You're following someone else's system. You're not creating your own, so you really don't have any liberty to deviate. So if the system doesn't fit your market, you're stuck with it. But when you're starting your own business, you're building everything from scratch. So you got to create the systems, right? You got to write the processes. You got to figure out what works through trial and error, and that takes much longer, and it's going to be expensive. So you design systems that fit your business and your market. That's what's great about it, and you're not locked into somebody else's outdated playbook. And if things need to change, you can change them. You can innovate. You can adapt quickly. But here are the cons. It takes time, energy, and mistakes to build effective systems. It could take years. You don't have a proven blueprint like you would with a franchise, right? And you might waste a lot of money on things that you realize don't work at the end of the day, so the money's gone. So the bottom line is, if you want a proven system and you're okay following someone else's rules, but you have to follow them to the T, franchising works. But if you want to build your own system and you're creative and you're comfortable with trial and error, but you got to be consistent. Starting your own business works. Like I say, they both work, but you have to ask yourself, do I need a blueprint or do I want to create my own? So let's look at the third comparison, legal control and freedom. This is the big one that people don't really understand, or they had a different understanding. When you buy a franchise, you're entering into a heavily regulated legal relationship. You sign a franchise agreement that controls almost every aspect of your business, and everything's covered in there almost. So what you can sell, how you market, where you operate, how to do sales, promotions, who your vendors are, right? What your hours are, how you train employees, how you hire them, all that stuff, right? You own the business entity, but you don't control the operations. You don't control the brand. And legally, you're somewhere between an employee and an independent business owner, but you're not completely independent like you started your own business. So the pros here is the franchisor has already navigated the legal compliance issues, so you don't have to figure out trademarks, contracts, or regulatory issues. In fact, you don't really own that stuff. You're operating inside a legal framework that's been tested, but that also means you have very little decision-making power. You don't control the brand or the IP or anything. The franchisor can change rules unilaterally and you have to follow them. And if you violate the franchise agreement, they can terminate you, take everything, and there's penalties. And you can't sell the business without their approval. So when it comes to starting your own business, though, you have full legal control whether you like it or not, and you should have an attorney. So you make the decisions, you set up the strategy, you own the IP. Better learn how to protect it and defend your business. You control everything, pricing, vendors, marketing, expansion. You better have tight contracts, right? You can pivot, change direction, or rebrand anytime. You own the intellectual property, the brand, the content, the systems. You gotta have in-house counsel. Please, I keep telling everybody this. And here's the cons, right? Because you're fully exposed legally. And if something goes wrong, it's completely on you. Judges are not forgiving. You have to build legal protection. You have to build a business defense system. You have to build the right contracts, trademarks, compliance. You don't have the franchisor's legal infrastructure, and thankfully, because you'd be liable to them. So the bottom line is this, right? Franchising trades freedom for structure. You get safety, but you also give up control, right? You can't have it both ways. Entrepreneurship trades structure for freedom. You get control, but you carry that risk, and that risk can kill you sometimes. You gotta ask yourself, do I value autonomy or do I value structure and protection? So let's talk about the fourth comparison. That's profit margins and financial upside. Let's talk about the upside. It's important. When you buy a franchise, your profit margins are really limited, and they're limited by the fees that you pay to the franchisor, and they can be a lot of fees. Typical fees include your initial franchise fee, your ongoing royalties, and that's based on gross revenue. Then there's marketing fees. That's also based on gross revenue. Then there's technology fees, training fees, renewal fees. These fees come off the top. That means before you pay yourself. So let me give you an example, right? Let's say your franchise does $1 million in annual revenue. You got 6% royalty, that's $60,000. You have 2% marketing, that's $20,000. You have other fees of $5,000. You're paying $85,000 a year to the franchisor before you pay rent, payroll, or yourself. You gotta understand that. So you know the fee structure up front, that's a good thing. And the fees fund corporate support and national marketing that you ultimately benefit from. So that's a good thing, but the cons are this: your profit margins, they're capped and they're limited. They're dictated by the franchisor. You're paying fees even if you're losing money, and the franchisor's profits whether you succeed or fail. So when it comes to starting your own business, you keep 100% of the profit. That's obviously if you don't have another partner or what have you, but you don't pay royalties, you don't pay franchise fees, right? So the pros are you have a higher profit potential, right? You keep everything. They go into your pockets, you earn everything, there's no cap on your upside. But of course there's cons. You have to fund your own growth and marketing, that's expensive. And there's no guaranteed revenue model, and you're building a new brand. So profit takes longer to build because you're starting from zero. It's not an established brand like a franchise. And the bottom line is this: franchising offers predictable costs, but limited upside. Entrepreneurship offers unlimited upside, but higher uncertainty. So the question to ask yourself in this scenario is, do I want predictable margins or do I want to keep everything and earn the big dollar? What about comparison number 5? That's the exit strategy and ownership. And this is one of the most overlooked areas and differences, and it matters a lot when you're ready to sell the business. So when it comes to a franchise, let's get this clear. You don't own the brand. You own a license to use the brand and use it for a fixed period of time, and that's usually 10 years. So you just own the license. And what does that mean? Well, It means when it comes time to sell, you're going to be subject to all sorts of things, transfer restrictions. The franchisor has to approve the buyer, right? There's going to be transfer fees. You pay the franchisor a fee, often $10,000 to $25,000 to transfer ownership. There's going to be a right of first refusal. That's when the franchisor can buy your franchise before you sell it to someone else. There's probably going to be a no renewal guarantee. So at the end of your term, the franchisor can choose not to renew to you, and that could be a problem, especially when you're making a lot of money, you want to renew. So the pros are there's a built-in market for franchise resales, right? It's liquidity, but buyers trust established franchise brands. The cons of this is you don't control the sale process, and the franchisor could really block or prevent you from making a sale. They don't like the buyer, or they want to play some sort of sneaky game. You may have to sell at a lower price even than you want. What if the franchisor doesn't renew your agreement? Now you gotta walk away with nothing, and that can be really scary. When you're starting your own business, you own 100% of the brand. You own the systems, you own the IP, so long as you protected it the right way. And what does that mean? Well, that means when it's time to sell, if you've done it properly and packaged your company, you control the buyer, you control the price, you control the terms, you keep 100% of the sale proceeds, and you have to create a nice legal package to sell that business, and you control that. So full ownership means maximum value in your pocket when you sell, and you can sell to anyone you want. And you can structure the deal however you want. It's all up to you, unlike a franchise, but it's harder to sell an independent business than a franchise. You're gonna get the valuations and have all those issues. Buyers have to trust you. You're not an established brand, right? Most of the time. You need clean financials. You need documented systems. You need transferable operations, and you need a good valuation. So the bottom line is franchising limits your exit options, but it's easier to find buyers. There's more liquidity there. Entrepreneurship gives you full control of the exit and creativity, but it requires more preparation to maximize value. So you gotta ask yourself, do I want control of my exit, or do I want an easier path to selling? So here's the big picture truth, right? Franchising isn't entrepreneurship. It's buying a business in a box with rules baked into the legal DNA. You're gonna get a proven system. You're gonna get brand recognition. You're gonna get built-in support to a certain degree and most of the time, but you're gonna give up some things. You're gonna give up creative control, legal freedom. You're gonna give up ownership of the IP. Now, starting your own business is true entrepreneurship. It's all you. You get full ownership, creative freedom. It's all on your shoulders. Unlimited upside. But like everything in life, you take on more risk, more uncertainty, slower growth, a lot more responsibility to build everything yourself, and it's scary. So neither path is better. They're just different. And you need to decide, is the safety net worth the leash, right? So whether you're buying a franchise or starting your own business, one thing is certain. You need legal protection, and that's why I built the only business defense system for entrepreneurs in the Legally Bulletproof Academy. It's to show entrepreneurs where the risks and enemies and liabilities are in their business so they can fix them right now before it's too late. Now, I've got a free gift for you. It's called the Risk Report and Business Defense Plan, where you can answer some questions about your business, and you can see what threats and get a legal audit of your business based on my system, all for free. This is something I would charge $7,500 for in an in-person mastermind, but for you, it's free using my AI-powered system. Just click below, get yourself a risk report, see what vulnerabilities and threats you may be facing in your business, and if you like this video, smash the like button, subscribe to the channel. I'm Karam, the battle-tested lawyer. The whole point of this is to get you legally bulletproof.